Hi there. Welcome back to part 2 of our Book Connect tutorial on Thema subject coding. In this session, I'll take you through all the new Thema features within Book Connect and present some more examples on how to make use of Thema codes right away. Let's get started. For all of our customers, you probably know already that there's a number of panels. So we're going to be talking today about the subject panel because that's really what's changed here. We now have several sections. So we have a Bisac section and a Thema section. All your Bisac codes are going to have a little letter B, and all your Thema codes are going to have a little T, so you know which is what's going on. Also interesting, everything's color coded. So if you see two codes that are the same color, it's an indicator to you that one's come out of the other. Because remember, we're going to automatically generate codes based on all your Bisac codes automatically as soon as you move to version 11. So that'll all be set up for you right out of the gate. As soon as you look at the subject panel, you're probably going to notice that difference right off. So how do I change things? So let me click on edit here to bring up the actual editor. So this is your subject editor. Now you'll see, again, the color coding. You have blue and orange and green and pink to indicate those 4 different Bisac codes and what's hooked to which. Imagine we have a book that's been released, you're trying to code properly, and it's about jazz in New Orleans in the 1920s. It celebrates that part of the world. It celebrates the music of the African American community at the time. So we want to try to touch on all those different subjects. And what I'll do is I'll take you through a real example here where we're going to use Bisac codes to try to set it up. And then we're going to supplement those Bisac codes. As you'll see, there's some problems with the Bisac coding that Thema can sort out. So we'll start by setting up the Bisac coding, and you'll see how that works and how it automatically brings in the Thema codes. And then we'll make some adjustments to that, which is probably the most common use case as you get more and more used to it. And remember, there's nothing you have to do right out of the gate. All of this has been set up so that for you, based on those BISG mappings. So all you've really got to do is kind of grow into this over time. So let's look for a good code here. So I'm going to look up jazz, and we have 3 possible codes in the Bisac world. We have juvenile nonfiction. Well, that's not what this book is. It's more of a history book. So we have music styles, genre and styles, jazz. So that would probably be a good choice. So you'll see that now the system's automatically gone in and told you that AVLP and 6JD are the 2 Thema codes that are associated with that Bisac code. So you don't have to, if you're used to just entering Bisac codes, you're kind of done. It'll automatically do that for you and you don't have to do anything else. But, and that's pretty good actually right out of the gate. But we also want to touch on the fact that it's early 20th century, 1920s. So let's see what we have in that area. So if I said United States history, let's look up some codes here. So 20th century United States history, that's pretty general. We know that it's, I'm seeing here state and local though, so I have South Georgia. So this probably is a good place to go to. So we're looking at Southern history now. Not specific to a particular time, but as we know, these history, by the time you break out, because Bisac codes have to encompass the entire concept, by the time you break out the different regions and the different time frames, there would be so many codes that it just doesn't work that way. So what we have now, it's added in this NHK, which is History of the Americas, a lifestyle and hobbies, local history, I guess because it's regional history, and US South as a place. So again, we could just leave it at that, but that doesn't seem like where we should end up. Although I have to say that Bisac's kind of limited us. So if we wanted to now go in and try to make some changes to this to encompass more of the regionality or the time frame, let's go into 1920s and see what we have. Well, there's no Bisac codes that do that. What about the African American component where we want to kind of celebrate the music? So we have juvenile fiction and we have biography and autobiography. Again, and neither of those codes really suit what we're trying to do. So to be quite honest, that's about as good as you could do in Bisac coding. So if I submit that, it comes back and everything's color coded. I see my Bisac codes and my Thema codes. And that's kind of out of the gate what you're going to get automatically on all your existing titles. But what you're going to want to do as time goes on, and as you get more and more used to things, is you're going to want to have to fine tune that and make sure that the Thema coding is better. So there's a few things that are kind of off here. One is that the place is US South, but we know this book is specifically about New Orleans. So why don't we try to go in and fine tune that? So what you do is you go and you turn off that thema code, because that's not the one we want to use. And down here at the bottom, we have additional thema. So we can go in here and we can say New Orleans, and we have place New Orleans. Well, that's kind of perfect. So what we've done there is we've now added an additional thema and taken out the US out. So now if we submit that, you'll see that it swapped out that general Southern American with a specific New Orleans, which is much, much better. Another thing you might want to do is take out this local history. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. So it's actually not a history book either, so we should probably nick that off. We're touching on the history only because there's no better option in Bisac. So the next thing you might want to do is you might want to say, well, let's get into this 1920s. Let's make sure that it reflects the 1920s. So we have 1920 to 1929. That seems a lot better. And we also want to touch on the fact that it has to do with African American history. So we would look up African American, and we have an interest qualifier relating to African American, Black American people. So we're going to turn that on as well. So again, now you see a much cleaner and more specific series of codes that actually do a much better job at explaining what this book is about. So now that we've worked through some real world examples, I want to get a little more into how all the buttons in the UI work, just to make sure you understand it. So once you go into the edit here in the subject, there's a few new features though. So the first thing is you'll notice these buttons here, the up and down buttons on the left. So there's a new little feature here where if I go, let's just pick a code here, I'm going to science fiction, science technology. So if I wanted to now flip that up to the top, before you'd have to delete it out and put it in, but now I could just click a button and move science and swap them back and forth any which way I want. And what's nice is you'll notice that the mappings, the thema mappings move along with it. So that the biology DNBT goes up and down along with this and turns color. So you know which one is which with still and everything like that. And that works 3 and 4 exactly the same. And if I needed to move space, I can move this down another one and insert another code in here. Let's say dance. So that happens like that. So if I submit that again, you see that now it comes up with the codes and they're sorted in the same order. So these subjects are in the same order as the Bisac by default, which all makes sense. So let's say that this was actually a juvenile fiction book and it was about cats. So it's juvenile cats, let's say. I don't know if I may have to say juvenile. Oh, right, because that's not a thema code. So let's say it's just about cats. Child interest cats. There we go. So by default, if I put that in, it's just going to tag it on at the end here. Teenage general interest cats, including big cats. So what if I wanted that to be up higher than these biography stuff? What you can do is you can go and you can tie that to any of the different Bisacs. So if I said that's actually part of the Bisac 1 grouping, it actually moves it up in the ladder, which is really what you want, because otherwise you'd have to delete or override each of these codes and do a whole bunch of. So this makes it really simple to do that. That's one thing. And then let's say I added a couple. Let's say that this was about Alberta and let's say more specific, Calgary, Alberta, and it was for the it has to do with let's say just to pick another one. I don't think we've used style yet or play. I think we've used place, a lot place style. So let's say it has to do with art deco. Style art deco. There we go. So obviously the same way you can move around your Bisacs, these codes work the same. So I can move that up. So I can move art deco up so that it appears above. I can move that so that it goes up with the arts dance by putting Bisac 2 here and submitting it, and it moves up with arts dance. So you have a lot of functionality in terms of trying to build a hierarchy and which codes are most important to move up to the top. So that's about it. That's our demonstration of all this new features. As you can see, they're not really hard to use, and they're really made so that Bisac will, all the work you've put into making your Bisac codes correct, it's really going to take advantage of that and really kind of bring Thema to all the functionality of Thema on top of that, so that you're not going to have to go through and recode anything or anything like that. And you can still live in a Bisac first world for as long as you want, and let these Thema codes kind of augment and make them only better. Thanks so much.